I prefer that we have policy and not punishment to try to work out the issues with the immigrants that are in our country. And to think that we're just going to remove people and that there not be consequences, I think is very naive.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, welcome to the hottest political podcast in the state of Nebraska, The Dan Parsons Show. And I'm your host, Dan Parsons. Coming up on today's show, Nebraska State Senator Margo Juarez. But before I introduce Senator Juarez, a shout out to Friends of Dan, our Patreon support team. If you'd like to support the #1 political podcast in Nebraska with your hard-earned cash, hop on over to patreon.com. Look up the Dan Parsons Show and join the fun. Not only will you be supporting this show, you'll get the first notice about our upcoming live event and how to snag a ticket. So stay tuned for that. Okay, here's my interview with Nebraska State Senator Margo Juarez. Enjoy. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Nebraska State Senator Margo Juarez. Senator Juarez, welcome to the Dan Parsons Show.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, it's a delight. We're doing a little conversation in the pregame, and we've not had the opportunity to meet face-to-face, so I look forward to doing that sometime soon. But as a freshman senator, you're getting a lot done, so...
I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, let me give a little background for those that don't know you. Elected to the Nebraska legislature in 2024, representing the 5th District in Omaha. You have an MBA from the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and you previously served on the Omaha Public School Board. Your resume says you're a proud member of the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance and the Buena Vista Neighborhood Association. And I like this. You put in your bio, public service is my passion. I like that.
Thank you. That really is very true.
Yeah.
I've been pleasantly surprised how much I have really enjoyed it, because believe me, I really didn't get into the public school or public service area until after I moved back to Nebraska. So at other places that I've lived, I've not done this. And so it has been a totally new experience for me, but I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, seasons of life, right?
Right.
Good for you. Good for
Right.
you. Well, here's my first question. Last week, you joined over 100 protesters outside the governor's mansion after the announcement that Governor Pillen and the state of Nebraska is partnering with President Trump's Immigration and Customs Enforcement to build a detention facility at a state prison in McCook. So what was your message at that protest at the governor's mansion?
Well, of course, I was trying to sow support for our immigrant community. That was the absolute goal, was to show support. And I definitely wanted the message to be that I prefer that we have policy and not punishment to try to work out the issues with the immigrants that are in our country. And I really wanted to make sure that people understood that I think that it can be another solution to try to meet this crisis that we're having. And I honestly think that going to the role of making a change with our detention center in McCook, that is absolutely the wrong path, and I don't support it.
Yeah. President Trump said that the new facility in Nebraska would help ICE agents, quote, remove the worst of the worst. We've heard that phrase over and over again. Despite the governor, confusingly, the governor and state agency heads explaining it would house only low-level and medium-risk immigration related detainees. And so have you learned anything about who will be housed at that detention facility out in McCook?
No, actually, the legislature hasn't been given a lot of information about the details yet. I'm sure that they're still trying to work all those details out. And what scares me is that is a good question of who's going to be placed there. Are children going to be there?
Yeah.
Are, whole families going to end up there? It really is a question that needs to be answered and should be answered up front.
Well, Governor Pillen, when asked last week if children, just as you mentioned, if children would be housed at this new facility out in McCook, he said, quote, "I'm not a politician, so I haven't thought about that question and haven't asked that question." I think his answer confused a lot of people. First of all, well, you are a politician, Governor, and it is your job to know those answers. And again, I guess we'll give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe this was all fairly new to him and he didn't know all those answers. But anyway, your reaction to the governor's response to that question?
Well, really, I guess I'm not going to be as kind as you are in that respect because, to me, if you're making a decision like that, you should have the answers to those questions. And you shouldn't be proceeding or committing our facilities unless you know the answers to those important questions up front. Because I think that that would be the first question that I would have asked, is who are we going to try to accommodate there? Because, for example, if there are going to be families there, what kind of privacy is a family going to have? Are they all going to be able to be housed together? Can the facility meet a need like that? And what about beds? Are children going to be able to be accommodated in the beds that we have? I mean, there's just a lot of simple logistics that need to be in place to accommodate all the immigrants that they plan on housing there. And again, thinking about the safety aspects. Is it going to be safe? One of the main issues is safety.
100%. This kind of reminds me of the criticism of Congress in their role in our democracy, three equal branches of government. And I know a lot of people have criticized Congress for not being that check on the administration when it comes to some of these issues, specifically immigration. So I guess similarly, obviously the Nebraska legislature has a role in this. I mean, you vote for funding for the Department of Corrections, although I guess this is going to be funded by the federal government. But I don't know, maybe you haven't had a chance to because you're not in session to meet with some of your other colleagues, but what role does the legislature have in this? Is there an oversight with this from the legislature?
Yes, the legislature would provide oversight for this facility. It is in the Constitution that the penal facilities are one of the areas that we have oversight in. And obviously, this is a huge concern for us. And in regards to the funding, I absolutely don't believe that the federal government is going to cover 100% of the costs. Absolutely do not believe that. So I think that it'd be interesting for somebody to continue to follow the numbers there. A great task for our auditor to be monitoring for us, like he audits all of our other agencies, right?
Yeah.
And definitely getting the bottom line of the costs and making sure that the federal government covers everything. Because just think of the costs if we go through with this project of moving the prisoners to a new facility.
Yeah.
It isn't just the operation of the McCook facility. It's the impact that it's having on our prisoners.
Right. Because those,
the other areas.
right. Because the people who are currently at that facility need to be moved someplace else. And so there's going to be costs with that and housing with that. And let's remind our audience that Nebraska has one of, if not the most overcrowded prison system in America. And so this is going to have an impact for sure. You mentioned Auditor Foley. Yeah. I mean, a story out today that he uncovered some nefarious whoopee cushions that were purchased illegal or, without approval. Let's, anyway, maybe could be some oversight in some other areas. But anyway, I digress.
It's okay.
Let's talk about polling on this issue. Recent polling suggests that a majority of Americans now disapprove of President Trump's handling of immigration, though most Republicans still support it. What are you hearing in your district from your constituents about this issue?
Well, I have gotten a lot of positive feedback, positive support about, the voice that I've provided to this issue, the voice that others are providing to the issue. And a lot of people in my district are concerned. And again, just like we're finding out through the polls that it is just like too much, too fast, and people aren't thinking about the consequences. And that's what's concerning, is really it's not a well thought out plan. And I think that I wish that there were more people at the table trying to provide suggestions on how this should be administered, because don't get me wrong, like everyone else, I realize that we need to have immigration laws in place that are going to work for our country. I absolutely agree that changes are needed, but it is so complex in trying to deal with the current population that we have. It's just mind-boggling, because I sat down and tried to, think about the consequences of moving our immigrants, right? Think about, like, are some people who have been here for many, many years.
Yeah, they're
right?
part of our community. Yeah.
Exactly. They have families here. They have assets here, children in school, contracts that they've signed, even if they don't own a home, even if they're just renting. I mean, the economic aspects here are complex. And to think that we're just going to remove people and that there not be consequences, I think is very, very naive. And I wish that instead we could take an approach of, okay, so that you're going to have to leave if that's the decision that's made, right? We need you to wrap up your business, take care of your matters. And I do know that, for example, the schools have tried to encourage parents to always make sure your records are up to date on who we contact for an emergency. That's just one wow. Small example. Wow. If they go home and their parents aren't there, what is a school to do? Who are they supposed to contact? Even a plan like that needs to be in place. And I just think that there really is a better approach to trying to solve this matter. Yeah. That's just one of the many issues, right?
Yeah. We've had immigration attorney Allison Hymas on the show a couple times recently, and to talk about the ICE raid earlier this summer at Glen Valley Foods in Omaha. And I know you've been speaking out about the effects this raid has had on the immigrant community in Omaha. Any updates that you're aware of that you'd like to share with that community about that?
No, I don't personally have any updates, but I do want you to know, in case you didn't, that facility was in my district also.
Yes.
And I did reach out to the president because I had taken my legislative business cards to the facility in case they I could help in any way, wanted them to be able to contact me and understand that this was in my district. And especially when I heard the stories about how some of the families were struggling, right? Because of the moms who are no longer there. For my own satisfaction, I wanted to reach out to them to offer my help in any way that I could.
Yeah. No, I was aware of that. Thank you for reminding our audience that, that facility in your district. And I know, again, you were out there right away offering help. So, let's shift gears. Maybe talk about your work on an interim bill on passenger rail service. You, along with Pro Rail Nebraska advocates, are conducting a statewide series of town halls to gauge interest that Nebraskans might have in passenger rail options. So I guess my first question, Senator, how did that interim study come about, and what's been the reaction so far? I know you're just starting these town halls, and I want to make sure our audience knows about those, the remaining town halls, but talk a little bit about that interim study and how it came about.
Well, I really appreciate you letting me bring that topic up too.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it is definitely a project that is very important to me and dear to my heart, because I am so frustrated with the lack of transportation options that we have in our state. And I know that I have been spoiled by other places that I've lived. And most recently, I retired from Utah before I moved back here in 2014. And their light rail system definitely spoiled me when I was there. I was able to just drive a few minutes from my condo to the parking garage, get on the light rail that took me down to the train, would be on the train in the morning, and got out and walked across the street to my job.
Nice.
So you can't be more spoiled than that with mass transportation.
And you can read, listen to music, do some work. Yeah.
Yes. Take a few minutes of extra shut-eye in the morning, to try to get yourself ready to go to work. And then I come home and I don't see any progress in our state. And so I just taken it upon myself that I want there to be a change. And I think that it is really a detriment to our state to not making progress with other transportation options. And so that's really why I started this study. And I know that other senators in the past have brought it up.
Yep.
And I want to continue to move the topic forward. And of course, I have this ambitious goal of getting it in place in my time period.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to be taking the topic to other areas of the state. I have already went to visit Columbus, and then I'm going to be going to Lincoln, September 5th. We have the town hall there, and that's going to be at First Presbyterian Church. And then we're going to go to North Platte, September 9th at their public library. And then Grand Island on September 15th, again at the library. And the last one will be in Omaha on September 22nd, and that will be at the Willa Cather Library.
And we'll make sure we put those dates and locations in the notes to the podcast, Senator, so people can find that. So talk a little bit about the organization that you've partnered with, ProRail. I'm not familiar with the organization. Talk a little bit about how you got to know them and how they are helping with this effort.
They definitely are a great partner to have for this project. And I have to tell you that I met all of them just going out to their meeting when I found out that they existed. And this was even before I was elected. And I went and sat at their meetings, saw their interests that they had with our railroad systems. And I knew that they were going to be good advocates for this project. And so they were excited that I was willing to take the topic out there too, to get interaction with the members of our state. And so I couldn't have been any luckier than to go and walk into their meeting, not knowing a soul, and sitting down and listening and being inspired by their advocacy for the rails. So I just lucked out, I'll tell you that.
So what are some of the challenges? Maybe let's start with what are the benefits? Why should we embrace expanded passenger rail service in Nebraska?
Obviously, one of the biggest reasons that I think we should do this is because we need to get cars off the road. You know, we are so car centric in this state. And I think that it's important to try to provide an alternative system. And the interesting thing about this was I can't believe how complex the project actually is. I mean, I'm just barely getting started here. There are so many entities that I need to meet with, to try to figure out how we're going to get this accomplished. And I also think that people are ready to have an option like this. For example, I was fortunate that Union Pacific gave me the suggestion of just trying to do an excursion to go to a football game.
Yeah,
let's say.
Great idea. Yeah.
To go to sport events in Lincoln, volleyball, basketball, whatever, just give it a try from that type of event. And I thought that was a great idea. And that's one of the goals of how I want to start out is let's do this excursion and see if people will get on the trains and ride them out there to go to an event like that. And I've also I've interacted with many different people. I've been fortunate that I've actually had some people who are former railroad employees contact me. And they have really been a good source for ideas also. And obviously, if we get more cars off the road, then obviously that helps with safety. There's no doubt that that's going to help with our safety measures. And obviously, if we have less accidents on our highways, fewer deaths, fortunately, that doesn't happen long. But again, a positive thing for our insurance rates. Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Something positive for our car insurance rates. So I think that if people could just try to grasp a new idea of how we could use rails today, I think it would be good. Think of the number of something simple like this, and I'm biased, of course, but think about maybe the potential candidates we could attract in the future for serving our legislature.
Yes.
If they knew that, hey, I don't have to do that drive every day. I could get on the train and get to Lincoln instead. I'm like, you never know who that will open up the opportunity for, that they would be able to go and serve because they have a way to get there. And something that's reliable.
I assume cost is the biggest obstacle. Maybe talk a little bit about that. I mean, we currently have some existing, obviously Amtrak is in the state, and so we currently have some passenger rail already existing. But talk about some of the challenges, and I assume, again, that cost would be one of those.
Yes, absolutely. That is probably what's been the biggest detriment to getting this on board in years past, right, is the cost. And there's no doubt that I need to try to get support at the federal level to advocate for us to try to get some federal funds involved to help with costs. And one of the topics that was brought up in my conversations with the rail people, of course, is the liability issue. I mean, liability insurance in and of itself can be very expensive. So I know that a ticket with a rider probably isn't going to cover the costs that a rail company will face. And so I know that getting those federal funds is going to be important. but I really need to hopefully get one of our leaders at that level enthusiastic about this new project on board with me also. That would help tremendously.
Uh, and like I said, we will make sure that those other town hall dates are in the notes. But if people want to learn more about this project and the town halls, how can they contact you or your office and give us that information as well?
I would say for those who have never contacted me at the legislature, just going to the legislature page, on to our website, and then you can find my landing page there, and then that will provide you the information on how to contact my office and have the information for my email.
Yeah.
So I've been encouraging folks to reach out in that way also.
Yeah. And again, we'll make sure that that information's in the notes to the show too. Senator, maybe to wrap up, I am impressed with your level of passion for the state of Nebraska and your constituents, and willing to be out on the front line, literally on the front line to have an impact. Maybe just your thoughts on how important it is for people to get involved in the system, and with the simple act of just making sure we all vote and we're registered to vote. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I think that it's really important for people to understand how critical our election is going to be, here at the state, even if we just even focus on the state next year. And I really would like to encourage people to vote and to make sure that they're registered to vote. Is your voting document up to date? Have you moved since the last time you voted, and remembering, of course, how we've already implemented needing an ID for when you go to vote.
Yep.
All of those things matter, but I really hope people will participate in our next election, and of course, continuing on in the years ahead. I know that there are so many people who have just given up on voting. I've learned that when I was running myself, and going door to door. I just think that it is unfortunate how many people don't even bother. It's like they've given up, they've given up. And I feel that we've got to get people motivated again, for them to feel that their vote is important and that it does make a difference, because I believe that's the only solution that we have to making positive changes for our state.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because half of your colleagues will be up for election next year. And, the most unique legislative body in America, there's only 49 of you. And those 49 people make a heck of a lot of decisions that impact all of our lives. And again, this is not a presidential election, so typically the voter turnout is not as good. But I'm just seeing, I'm in the business of politics, but from what I've seen so far, there's a tremendous amount of interest in what's going on in America and right here in Nebraska. So I'm forever the optimist, but I think there's going to be a big turnout next year for the election here in Nebraska.
Well, I really hope that that's true. And I'm very pleased that you're going to be positive about that. And I'll stay positive and trying to encourage, maybe try to recruit. If everybody who listens to this show today could recruit one person to get back on those voting rolls and be ready for next year, that would be great.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll make that pledge. Darn right. Well, Senator Margo Juarez, thank you for your service. Thanks for your passion to represent your constituents in the 5th District in Omaha. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And I wanted you to know that I really appreciate that you're taking time to have discussions on these important topics. because I think that it is important that our voices are heard. And I would like to encourage you to think about your future speakers you're going to have between now and next November, because it's important to get a good quality of representation out there, all the different voices that want to be heard, and that will be positive results for our state.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. That's a good message. Yeah, no, I know people are watching and listening because I'm hearing from a lot of those candidates that want to be on the show. So, yeah, we're going to continue to do our part. Well, again, pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your service, and let's not make this one and done. Let's do this again.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Hey, some breaking news this afternoon after Senator Juarez and I finished our interview. Late this afternoon, 13 state lawmakers, including Senator Juarez, released a letter they sent to State Senator Carol Bausen of Lincoln, chair of the legislature's Judiciary Committee, calling for a public hearing on the state's plan to convert the Nebraska work ethic camp in McCook into an immigration detention center. They argue the governor's agreement with ICE bypasses the Nebraska Constitution and state laws regarding prison management. I actually asked the senator about that. The lawmakers seek answers on the impact on incarcerated individuals, staff, and the broader prison system, as well as the legality of the agreement. Again, Senator Juarez and I talked about the pressure this will cause on the rest of Nebraska's prison system from moving the current prisoners in that facility somewhere else. Going on about this special report, according to reporting by Zach Windling of the Nebraska Examiner, the letter states in part, quote, "There was no meaningful notice to the legislature, local officials, or the public about this agreement. The governor's disregard for including the legislature, the people's branch, is deeply problematic. Nebraska deserves answers," end quote. Senator Bausen said she received the letter late Wednesday afternoon and was still reviewing it. She said she would have a response on Thursday. Okay, there's the update. Thanks, Senator Juarez, for joining me today. Keep doing what you're doing. It's impressive, especially as a freshman senator. Thanks so much. Hey, and if you're a friend of Dan, our Patreon support team, look for an announcement and invite to our 1-year anniversary and 100th episode party. Not a friend of Dan? Hop on over to patreon.com and sign up. Hey, and don't forget to show us some love and hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Thanks to the Parsons team who made this show possible. Chase Porter, executive producer. Ike Samanis, producer and graphic design. Penology, tech solution for their technical help and equipment. And Kim Remington, Parsons PR's director of operations. And my thanks to each of you for your support and for tuning in. Okay, go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.